While my husband drains our joint account for his secret investment club, I'm finalizing the acquisition of my 5th international property that will triple my net worth overnight. As he hides our family savings in offshore accounts, he thinks, I can't trace. I'm orchestrating the reveal of my $40 million business empire built right under his nose. He has no idea that his financially clueless wife of 20 years has been silently outperforming his portfolio by 300% since the day he decided I didn't need access to our money. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My hand remains steady as I sign the final acquisition papers, a quiet smile playing at my lips. Through the window of my attorney's sleek downtown office, I can see the imposing Morgan Financial headquarters where my husband Thomas currently sits in his weekly executive strategy meeting. The irony isn't lost on me. The same building where he started hiding our family savings 20 years ago now stands in the shadow of the Waterson Tower, my company's newest acquisition. Mrs. Waterson, are you absolutely certain about the timing? Eleanor, my attorney of 15 years, watches me with her characteristic mixture of admiration and professional concern. Her platinum-rimmed glasses catch the afternoon light as she organizes another stack of documents for my real estate portfolio. I turn my phone toward her, showing Thomas's latest text message. The timestamp reads 3 minutes ago. Working late. Tonight, sweetheart, big client presentation. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you. What he doesn't know is that I've already seen his reservation at Vincenzo's, a table for 2 at 8 p.m., made on our joint credit card that he still doesn't realize. I monitor. The same restaurant where he takes his investment club friends to celebrate their financial victories using money siphoned from our family accounts. The timing, I say, signing another paper with flourish, is perfect. My phone buzzes. With a transaction alert, $15,000 withdrawn from our joint savings account. The description reads, Emergency Investment Opportunity, T. Waterson. This would be the 3rd emergency this month. I add the screenshot to my meticulously organized digital folder titled Thomas's Activities, 2025. Eleanor watches me carefully. Rebecca, this acquisition puts your net worth at over $40 million. The moment we file these papers, there's no keeping this quiet. The business press will pick it up within hours. Good, I reply, initialing another page. It's been quiet for far too long. 20 years too long, to be precise. I still remember the exact moment everything changed. It was April 2005, just 3 years into our marriage. I'd gone to withdraw money for our anniversary trip and discovered I couldn't access our joint savings. The bank manager had looked at me with professional sympathy. I'm sorry, Mrs. Waterson, but access to this account has been restricted to the primary account holder only. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. There must be some mistake, I'd said. It's a joint account. The settings were changed last week, she'd replied, checking her computer. Mr. Waterson made the adjustment. He didn't mention it to you? He hadn't, just as he hadn't mentioned moving 80% of my teacher's salary, which I'd contributed, to our joint savings for our dream home, into his high-performance investment portfolio. A portfolio I would later discover was nothing more than a separate account in his name only. That night, when I'd confronted him, his explanation came with a patronizing smile. Becky, sweetheart, You're brilliant with your students, but finance isn't your strength. I'm just protecting our future. Trust me, it's better if I handle the money." I had trusted him for exactly one more day. The next morning, while Thomas was at work, I'd walked into Meridian Bank and opened my own account with the $2,000 cash my grandmother had given me before she died. Money I'd kept in a book safe as a personal emergency fund. "I'd like information about small business loans," I'd told the personal banker, a woman named Sophia who would later become one of my closest friends and advisors. "What kind of business?" she'd asked. I'd thought of my weekends spent renovating. Our first small apartment, how I'd increased its value by 40% with just $5,000 and my own labor. "Real estate," I'd answered. "Small-scale renovation and resale." Sophia had looked skeptical. "Do you have any experience?" "No," I'd admitted. "But I know property values in this city better than I know my own husband, and I'm a very fast learner." I didn't qualify for the loan then, but Sophia had given me information about a small business development program for women. "Start there," she'd suggested. "Build a track record, then come back." So I did. During the day, I continued teaching high school economics, a subject Thomas always found amusingly ironic given what he considered my financial naivety. Evenings and weekends, I attended every free business and real estate workshop I could find. I learned about property valuation, market trends, renovation budgeting, and financing options. 6 months later, I purchased my first property, a condemned, single-bedroom unit in what Thomas referred to as the wrong side of town. I paid $25,000 cash, using every dollar I'd managed to save from my teaching salary that wasn't going into the joint account Thomas still thought I was contributing to fully. "You bought what?" he'd asked when I mentioned the purchase, looking up from his premium whiskey with genuine surprise. "Becky, real estate is complicated. You should have consulted me first." "It's just a small project," I'd replied. "Something to keep me busy on weekends. You're always saying I need hobbies." He'd chuckled, kissed my forehead, and returned to his financial reports. "Just don't spend too much fixing it up. Those neighborhoods never return your investment." That hobby property sold 8 months later for $95,000, a tidy 280% return on investment after renovation costs. I rolled the profits into 2 more distressed properties, renovated them simultaneously, and sold them for double my investment within a year. All while Thomas continued moving our family savings into his private accounts, thinking I remained blissfully unaware. "The incorporation papers for Waterson Holdings are complete," Eleanor says, sliding another document toward me. "Once you sign, your entire portfolio will be consolidated under one corporate entity." I sign without hesitation. This moment has been 2 decades in the making. The truth is, I could have confronted Thomas years ago. I could have done it when I found the offshore account statements in his home office drawer in 2010, or when I discovered he'd been lying about our mortgage payments, claiming our house cost twice its actual value and pocketing the difference. Or perhaps when he borrowed from my inheritance after my parents died, promising to invest it for our retirement, but instead funding his membership at the exclusive Oakmont Country Club. I could have done it any of those times. But something in me wanted to see how far he would go, how long he would continue to underestimate me, how completely he would hang himself with the rope of his own arrogance. So I watched. I waited. And I built. By year 5, my hobby had grown into a legitimate small business with 6 renovated properties generating steady income. By year 10, I'd expanded into commercial real estate, buying distressed office spaces and transforming them into modern, high-demand work environments. Year 15 saw me moving into development, partnering with architects to build innovative mixed-use spaces that earned sustainability awards and attracted premium tenants. All while Thomas thought I was still grading economics papers and attending teaching conferences. "Rebecca," Eleanor says, interrupting my thoughts. "The disclosure timing matters. Once these filings become public, Thomas will know everything. Given what you've shared about his financial manipulations of your joint assets, he might try to claim a portion of your empire." I smile, remembering the careful groundwork I've laid for precisely this moment. "Let me show you something, Eleanor." I pull up a specific document on my tablet, a legal agreement from 2007, notarized and filed with the court. Thomas insisted I sign this financial separation agreement when I started wasting money on my real estate hobby. It explicitly states that any business ventures or investments I undertake are sole and separate property. A slow smile spreads across Eleanor's face as she reads the document. "He filed this himself? To protect his assets from your bad investments?" "He even paid for the lawyer," I confirm. "He was very concerned that my financial incompetence might somehow impact his wealth if my little projects went bankrupt." Eleanor actually laughs now, a rare sound from my usually composed attorney. "This is bulletproof, Rebecca. He legally separated your business activities from your marital assets. He has zero claim on anything you've built." "I know," I say simply. "I've had 3 different legal teams confirm it over the years." My phone lights up with another notification from our home security system. Thomas has arrived at our house, probably to change before his client dinner. Through the camera feed, I watch him whistling as he enters our marble foyer, checking his reflection in the mirror I'd sourced from an Italian craftsman, a mirror he thinks cost $500, but that I'd actually negotiated down from its $12,000 price. Tag, paying the difference from my business account so he wouldn't see the true cost. The home itself, a 7,000 square foot showcase, as Thomas calls it when hosting his business associates, is perhaps my favorite irony. While he believes he purchased it through his clever financial maneuvering, the truth is, I'd bought the distressed property through a shell company 2 years before we found it, renovated it strategically, then orchestrated its sale to us through a series of intermediaries. Thomas paid exactly 40% above market value, with the excess flowing directly into my business accounts. He lives in a house I technically sold to him, bragging about his real estate acumen while having no idea. "The press release is ready," Eleanor says, showing me the draft on her tablet. "Waterson Holdings emerges as city's largest female-owned real estate empire." The subheading reads, "Former teacher quietly built $40 million company while maintaining complete anonymity." "Send it tomorrow morning," I instruct, after he leaves for his 9 a.m. advisory board meeting. Eleanor nods, making a note. "The business journals will run with this immediately. It's too good a story to ignore. The secret female mogul who built an empire without anyone knowing. You'll be fielding interview requests by noon." "Good," I reply. "Schedule them at the Waterson Tower conference room. All of them." The Waterson Tower, my newest and most visible acquisition, stands directly across from Morgan Financial's headquarters. Its top-floor conference room offers a perfect view into Thomas's corner office. By this time tomorrow, he'll be watching news crews interview me about my business success while he sits at his desk, his carefully constructed narrative of financial superiority crumbling around him. My phone buzzes with another text from Thomas. Dinner running late. Investment group needs my expertise on a new opportunity. Don't wait up. Love you. I check my security app again and watch as he changes into his power suit, the one he reserves for impressing important clients and the occasional woman who isn't his wife. I've known about Melissa from his office for nearly a year now, just as I knew about Christine before her and Diane before that. Each relationship following the same pattern: expensive dinners charged to obscure business accounts, weekend conferences that never appeared in his company's official calendar, jewelry purchases carefully hidden among business expenses. I never confronted him about these indiscretions either. They were simply more data points, more evidence of his character, more justification for what I was methodically building toward. One last thing, Eleanor says, pushing a final document across the desk. Your updated will and estate plan. As discussed, it establishes the Waterson Education Foundation with an initial endowment of $20 million. I sign it without hesitation. The foundation represents everything this has truly been about: creating opportunities for young women to achieve financial independence through education and entrepreneurship. A cause inspired by 20 years of living with a man who believed women were fundamentally incapable of understanding complex financial matters. You know, Eleanor says, carefully, most people in your situation would have left years ago. Why stay? Why endure 2 decades of financial manipulation when you were clearly capable of supporting yourself? I consider her question, watching as Thomas's luxury sedan pulls out of our driveway on the security feed. He's right on schedule for his rendezvous, blissfully unaware that by this time tomorrow, his carefully constructed world will implode. I could have left, I acknowledge. But this was never just about the money he hid or the accounts he drained. This was about something more fundamental. What? Eleanor asks. The right to write my own story, I reply. From the moment he decided I was financially incompetent, without evidence, without discussion, without my consent, he was attempting to author my narrative, to define my capabilities and limitations, to place me in a box of his creation. I stand and gather my things, smoothing the jacket of my St. John suit, purchased with my own money, from my own accounts, as has been every item in my wardrobe for nearly 2 decades. I stayed because leaving would have accepted his narrative. Fighting openly would have operated within the parameters he established. But building something he couldn't imagine, right under his nose, while he continued to believe in my financial incompetence? I smile. That rewrites the entire story. Not just for me, but for every woman who's been underestimated. Eleanor stands as well, extending her hand professionally, though her eyes hold unmistakable admiration. It's been an honor to help you build this, Rebecca. The building part is done, I reply, shaking her hand firmly. Tomorrow comes the revelation. As I leave her office, my phone buzzes with an alert from my banking app. Thomas has just charged $500 at Vincenzo's, the first installment of what will likely be a much larger evening expense. Last month, a similar dinner ended with a $4,000 jewelry purchase at the boutique, conveniently located next to the restaurant. Let him enjoy his evening, I think, stepping into the elevator. By this time tomorrow, he'll be facing the financial reckoning of a lifetime. Not because I'll take what he's hidden. I have no need for it. My empire dwarfs whatever savings he's managed to accumulate. But because the careful financial separations he created to protect himself from my incompetence will now serve as an impenetrable barrier protecting my fortune from him. Sometimes the most satisfying victories aren't about taking something from someone else. They're about revealing who you've been all along, while they were too blinded by their own assumptions to see you clearly. As the elevator descends to the lobby, I feel a profound sense of anticipation. 20 years of patient building, of meticulous documentation, of strategic silence, culminating in tomorrow's revelation. 20 years of being underestimated ends in less than 24 hours, and I, for one, am ready. The next morning dawns with perfect clarity, both literally and metaphorically. I've slept better than I have in years, despite, or perhaps because of, what's coming. Thomas's side of our California king bed remains untouched. According to our home security system, he returned at 2:17 a.m., stumbling slightly as he entered, then opted for the guest bedroom. A wise choice, considering the faint perfume trail he surely carried with him. I dress with deliberate care. A custom Armani suit in deep midnight blue, Manolo Blahnik heels that add 3 precise inches to my height, and my grandmother's sapphire pendant, the one heirloom I kept hidden from Thomas's financial consolidations over the years. Every element of my appearance has been calculated for this day, right down to the professional yet camera-ready makeup. By 7:30 a.m., I'm in our gourmet kitchen, preparing coffee in the Italian machine Thomas purchased last year, after visiting Milan on a business trip that somehow required his marketing assistant's presence, but not his wife's. I hear him before. I see him, the familiar sound of his shower running, followed by the electric razor, then his power morning playlist drifting from the guest bathroom speakers. At precisely 8:15, he emerges looking annoyingly refreshed for someone who rolled in 5 hours ago. His Tom Ford suit, the one he reserves for important client meetings, hangs perfectly on his still athletic frame. At 52, Thomas Waterson remains handsome in that polished corporate way that commands respect in boardrooms and turns heads at charity galas. His silver-touched dark hair is expertly styled, his jawline still defined despite the occasional indulgence in 20-year-old scotch. "Morning, beautiful," he says, kissing my cheek as if last night's client dinner never happened. "Coffee smells amazing." I pour him a cup of the premium roast he special orders from a boutique supplier in Colombia. Another unnecessary extravagance that mysteriously appears on our doorstep each month, while never showing up in our joint expenses. "Sleep well?" I ask, my voice carrying just the right touch of wifely concern. "Like a rock," he lies smoothly. "Though that guest bed needs a new mattress. I crashed there since I got in so late. Didn't want to wake you." "How thoughtful," I murmur, sliding his coffee across our marble island. "How was the client presentation?" His momentary hesitation is imperceptible to anyone who hasn't spent 20 years studying his tells. The slight tightening around his eyes, the microscopic pause before his practiced response. Challenging, but productive. They're considering a substantial portfolio rebalance. "Congratulations," I say, raising my own coffee cup in a small toast. "You've always had a gift for steering clients toward the right investments." He smiles, accepting the compliment as his due. In this moment, the sheer audacity of his self-perception is almost impressive. Here stands a man who has systematically hidden family resources, drained joint accounts, misappropriated shared assets, and maintained multiple extramarital affairs, all while believing himself to be the financial and moral authority in our household. "Big advisory board meeting this morning," he says, checking his Patek Philippe watch. A 50th birthday gift he told me cost $12,000, but that actually set us back $35,000, according to the credit card statement I wasn't supposed to see. Should wrap up by noon, Thought we might do lunch at Le Bernardin if you're free. That sounds lovely, I reply, knowing full well neither of us will be having lunch at Le Bernardin today. I have a few errands this morning, but I can meet you there. He takes another sip of coffee, scrolling through emails on his phone. Perfect. I'll make a reservation for 12:30. My own phone buzzes discreetly. It's Eleanor. Press release goes out in 15 minutes. All systems go. I slip the phone back into my pocket, feeling an electric calm settle over me. 20 years of patience crystallizing into this singular morning. I should get going, Thomas says, finishing his coffee and gathering his briefcase. The hand-stitched Italian leather one I'd given him for our anniversary 5 years ago, purchased with my business proceeds but presented as if it had strained our household budget. Big things happening today. I can feel it. The irony of his statement nearly makes me laugh. Yes, I agree, maintaining perfect composure. It's definitely going to be a momentous day. He kisses my cheek again, his expensive cologne lingering in the air. Love you, Becky. I know you think you do, I reply softly. He pauses, confusion flickering across his face. What was that? I said, I love you too, I lie, as easily as he has lied to me for 2 decades. The moment the front door closes, behind him, I move to my home office, the smallest room in our house, which Thomas magnanimously allowed me to claim for grading papers and planning lessons. Little does he know that from this modest space, I've orchestrated millions in real estate transactions, directed a team of 40 employees through secure communications, and built an empire that will soon make headlines across the financial world. I open my laptop and watch as Thomas's car leaves our driveway, tracking his journey via the hidden GPS I installed in his vehicle 3 years ago. Not out of jealousy or suspicion, but simply to know precisely when he'd be arriving at Morgan Financial Headquarters. Today, that information is crucial. At 8:45 a.m., his car pulls into his reserved parking space beneath the Morgan building. Perfect timing. At exactly 9 a.m., as Thomas settles into his advisory board meeting on the 40th floor, Eleanor's press release hits the business wires. Simultaneously, I send a pre-programmed email to my entire company, ending my 20 years of anonymity and stepping fully into my role as founder and CEO of Waterson Holdings. Within minutes, my phone begins lighting up with notifications. The business press works quickly, especially when handed a story with this many compelling elements. Female entrepreneur. Secret empire. 20 years of building in silence. Rags to riches narrative. By 9:15, the first articles are already appearing online. At 9:30, I receive a text from Sophia, my banker friend who gave me that first crucial push toward entrepreneurship. It's happening. Just saw the Bloomberg piece. You're trending on financial Twitter. How does it feel? Like stepping into sunlight after 20 years in shadow, I reply honestly. The first call from Thomas comes at 9:47 a.m., earlier than I expected. I let it go to voicemail, curious what approach he'll take. 30 seconds later, a text. Becky, call me immediately. There's some bizarre news story about you running a real estate company? Obvious mistake, but need to address it ASAP. I don't respond. Instead, I watch through my security app as 2 news vans pull up outside our home. Right on schedule. Thomas calls 3 more times in rapid succession, then switches tactics. Sweetheart, something very strange is happening. People are calling me about you? Some mix-up with another Rebecca Waterson. Please call so we can straighten this out. The desperation in his follow-up text is palpable. Please call me back. This is getting serious. The board meeting just got interrupted because someone showed the chairman an article about you being some kind of real estate mogul. What the hell is going on? At 10 a.m. sharp, my driver arrives, right as the first reporters begin setting up for live shots in front of our home. I slip out through the side entrance, unseen by the growing media presence, and settle into the back seat of the waiting Mercedes. The Waterson Tower, please, Michael, I instruct. Yes, Ms. Waterson, he replies professionally, though I catch the hint of excitement in his eyes via the rearview mirror. After 5 years as my driver, always introduced to Thomas as my teaching colleague's husband who gives me rides sometimes, Michael is undoubtedly enjoying this moment of revelation too. As we pull away, I finally text Thomas back. No mix-up. Meeting press at Waterson Tower at 11. Everything will become clear. His response is immediate. What? What tower? What press? Rebecca, what have you done? For the first time in 20 years, I allow myself the satisfaction of complete honesty. Built an empire while you were busy hiding our savings. We'll talk later. I silence my phone as Michael navigates through the city toward downtown. Through the tinted windows, I watch the familiar landscape pass by. The neighborhoods where I purchased my first properties, the commercial districts, where I later expanded, the gleaming new developments that now bear my company's discreet influence. Quite a day, Ms. Waterson, Michael comments as we approach downtown. 20 years in the making, I reply, feeling strangely serene despite the storm I've unleashed. As we round the corner toward the financial district, the Waterson Tower comes into view. 45 stories of sustainable architecture and innovative design, my most visible achievement to date. The building's distinctive silhouette, with its rooftop gardens and solar facade, has already become a recognizable part of the city's skyline since its completion last year. But today is the first time my name, prominently displayed across the main entrance, will be publicly connected to me. We pull into the private underground garage, bypassing the growing number of news vehicles at the main entrance. Eleanor is waiting for me at the private elevator, tablet in hand, looking even more polished than usual in her courtroom-ready attire. It's absolute chaos up there, she says, unable to suppress her smile. Every business network is sending crews. The lobby is filled with reporters. Your team is handling it beautifully, exactly according to your protocols. Of course they are, I reply with quiet confidence. They've been prepared for this day as long as I have. The elevator ascends to the executive floor, a space I've visited countless times over the years, always under the guise of researching school field trip locations or meeting a parent who works in the building. Today, I enter as the owner and CEO, nodding to my executive team who stand waiting, a mix of excitement and pride on their faces. Maria, my COO for the past 8 years, steps forward. The conference room is ready. We've scheduled the press briefing for 11:15, followed by one-on-one interviews with selected outlets. Morgan Financial Headquarters has a perfect view of the proceedings, as requested. I smile, thinking of Thomas sitting in his board meeting, across the street, watching this unfold in real time. Excellent. Any word from my husband? He's called the main switchboard 14 times in the past 20 minutes, Maria replies, fighting back a smirk. Reception is following your instructions. To politely inform him that Ms. Waterson is preparing for her press conference and cannot be disturbed. I check my watch. A subtle Patek Philippe that makes Thomas's look ostentatious, purchased with my first million in profits. It's time. Let's rewrite the narrative. The next 2 hours unfold exactly as I've envisioned for years. Standing. At the podium in the glass-walled conference room, positioned so the Morgan Financial Building is clearly visible behind me, I introduce myself and Waterson Holdings to the world. The company's journey from a single renovation project to a $40 million enterprise. Our commitment to sustainable development and community investment. The launch of the Waterson Education Foundation to support women in business. Throughout it all, I can feel Thomas watching from across the street. My security team has confirmed he's standing at his office window, phone pressed to his ear, gesticulating wildly as his carefully constructed reality implodes in real time. The questions come rapid fire from the assembled journalists. Ms. Waterson, why keep your company secret for 20 years? Was this a deliberate strategy to build away from public scrutiny? How did you manage to create this empire while working as a teacher? Does your husband work with you in the business? This last question, the one I've been waiting for, comes from a young reporter near the front, her expression curious rather than confrontational. I smile, prepared for this exact moment. No, my husband is not involved in Waterson Holdings. In fact, today is the first day he's learning about the full extent of the company. He's always believed that I lacked financial acumen, which created the perfect environment for me to build without interference or expectation. Sometimes being underestimated is the greatest competitive advantage a person can have. The statement sends a ripple through the room. Cameras click rapidly, capturing what will undoubtedly become the most quoted line from today's revelation. From the corner of my eye, I can see Thomas has now left his window. According to the security updates discreetly reaching my phone, he's currently in the Morgan Financial lobby, attempting to gain access to our building but being politely delayed by security, another precisely orchestrated element of today's choreography. After concluding the main press conference, I moved to the adjoining room for one-on-one interviews with selected journalists, those from major business publications whose coverage will shape the narrative of my emergence. Throughout each conversation, I maintain the same measured tone, neither villainizing Thomas nor presenting myself as a victim. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming my narrative. Many would have confronted their spouse or left the marriage years ago, observes Catherine Reyes from Financial Times. Why choose this path instead? I stayed because leaving would have reinforced his narrative, that I was financially dependent and incapable, I explain. Confrontation would have triggered defensive maneuvers before I was ready. Instead, I chose to build something so undeniable that when revealed, it would completely rewrite the story. Not just for me, but for every woman who's been told she doesn't understand money. By 1:30 p.m., as the formal interviews conclude, Thomas has finally managed to reach the executive floor. Maria appears at my office door, her expression professionally neutral though her eyes betray her anticipation. Your husband is here, Ms. Waterson. Security has him waiting in the lobby conference room. I nod, taking a moment to center myself. Thank you, Maria. Please give me 5 minutes, then show him in. When she leaves, I move to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, looking out over the city I've slowly been transforming for 2 decades. In the distance, I can see our home, the house Thomas believes represents his financial success, but that has always been part of my carefully constructed plan. The irony isn't lost on me. For 20 years, Thomas believed he was protecting our financial future by hiding assets from his financially naive wife. All while I built a fortune that makes his hidden savings look like pocket change. A soft knock at the door signals Thomas's arrival. I turn, composing my expression into one of calm confidence as Maria shows him in. The look on his face is everything I've imagined and more: shock, confusion, anger, and beneath it all, the dawning horror of recognition. His perfectly tailored suit suddenly seems to hang awkwardly on his frame, as if his very self-image is shrinking in real time. What the hell is happening? Each word emerges as its own sentence, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. Maria closes the door discreetly, leaving us alone in my spacious corner office. A space 4 times larger than his at Morgan Financial, I note with quiet satisfaction. "Hello, Thomas. Please have a seat." I gesture to the visitor's chair, across from my desk, deliberately choosing not to meet him in the more neutral seating area by the windows. "I will not sit down. You need to explain whatever insane stunt you're pulling right now." He remains standing, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My colleagues are looking at me like I've lost my mind." The chairman asked if I knew my wife was a real estate tycoon. I sit in my executive chair, maintaining perfect composure. "This isn't a stunt, Thomas. This is Waterson Holdings, my company. I've been building it for 20 years, ever since you decided I wasn't financially competent enough to access our joint savings." His expression flickers between disbelief and defensive anger. That's not what happened. I was protecting our future, making sound investments. By hiding our money? I ask calmly. By moving my teaching salary into accounts I couldn't access? By borrowing my inheritance after my parents died? "I never," he begins, then stops, reassessing. His approach. His expression shifts, attempting to regain control of the situation. "Becky, sweetheart, clearly there's been a misunderstanding. Whatever you think I did—" "No misunderstandings, Thomas," I interrupt, my voice level but firm. "I've documented everything for 20 years, every account you hid, every withdrawal you disguised, every lie about our finances." He stares at me, his reality visibly realigning itself. "How did you—" He gestures vaguely at the office, the building, the empire now revealed. "This isn't possible. You're a teacher." "I was a teacher. I—" Correct him. "I'm also the founder and CEO of a $40 million real estate development company. Both statements can be true." He sinks into the chair across from me, his bravado crumbling. "Why?" he asks finally. "Why the secrecy, the deception? If you were unhappy with our financial arrangements, why not just say something?" The question is so steeped in irony that I actually laugh, a genuine, unexpected sound that seems to startle him. "That's a remarkably self-unaware question coming from you, Thomas." He flinches, then rallies. "I've always provided for us, given you a beautiful home, nice things. What exactly are you punishing me for?" "This isn't punishment," I explain, calmly. "This is consequence. And it's not for the money you hid, it's for the capability you denied. From the moment you decided I couldn't understand finance, without evidence, without discussion, you were attempting to write my story for me. Today I'm simply publishing the real version." Thomas's expression darkens as the full implications begin to sink in. "So this whole spectacle, this press conference across from my office, this was all about humiliating me?" "No, Thomas. This was about introducing myself and my company to the world in the most effective way possible. The timing and location were strategic business decisions, something you've always claimed to respect. His eyes narrow with sudden calculation. Fine. You've had your moment. You've built something. Impressive, I'll admit. But this theatrics doesn't change our situation. We're married. What's yours is mine. That's how it works. And there it is. Exactly the response I've been anticipating for years. I open the folder on my desk and slide a document across to him. Actually, that's not how it works. Not in our case. Perhaps you remember this? The financial separation agreement you insisted I sign in 2007? Thomas stares at the document in front of him, recognition slowly dawning across his features. His fingers trace over his own signature at the bottom of the page, the bold strokes now serving a purpose entirely different from what he'd intended 17 years ago. This was to protect our family assets, he says finally, his voice hollow. To shield our finances from risk while you experimented with your little real estate hobby. I lean forward slightly, maintaining perfect composure. Read paragraph 4, Thomas. The one you insisted your attorney add. His eyes scan the document, narrowing as he reaches the section in question. I know the words by heart, having read them countless times over the years, drawing strength from their unintended consequence. Any business ventures, investments, or financial activities undertaken solely by Rebecca Waterson shall remain her separate property, with all associated profits, losses, assets, and liabilities belonging exclusively to her. Thomas Waterson shall have no claim, right, or interest in such ventures, regardless of their success or failure. The color drains from his face as the implications sink in. The protective clause he'd crafted to insulate himself from what he'd assumed would be my financial failures now stands as an impenetrable barrier between him and my success. This can't be legally binding after all this time, he argues, desperation edging into his voice. We've been married 23 years. The court will see this as... The court has already seen it, I interject calmly. This agreement has been reviewed and upheld by 3 separate legal teams over the years. It was properly executed, properly filed, and I've operated in complete accordance with its terms since the day you had me sign it. I slide another document across the desk. This is the most recent judicial confirmation of the agreement's validity, obtained just last year during a standard corporate restructuring. You'll note the judge's specific finding that Waterson Holdings is legally separate from our marital assets. Thomas is a man accustomed to controlling rooms, conversations, and especially financial discussions. Seeing him struggle to regain his footing in this moment is like watching someone discover the floor beneath them has turned to glass, revealing an abyss they never knew existed. Why? He asks finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Why build all this in secret? Why not tell me? I consider his question carefully, not out of hesitation, but to ensure my answer reflects the full truth of these 20 years. Initially, it was necessity, I explain. You'd cut me off from our finances, made it clear you didn't respect my judgment with money. Telling you would have meant interference, guidance I didn't need, and possibly active obstruction. I stand, moving to the window wall that overlooks the city. But as time passed and success came, I realized something profound. The invisibility you imposed on me had become my greatest asset. While you were looking right through me, seeing only the schoolteacher wife you'd defined me as, I could build without limitation, without expectation, without anyone trying to claim credit for my achievements. I turn back to face him. Do you have any idea how rare that is for a woman in business? To build something without men trying to explain it to her, take credit for it, or control it. The freedom of being underestimated became the foundation of my success. Thomas stands abruptly, anger replacing his shock. So this whole thing, our entire marriage, has been what? A cover? A long con while you built your secret empire? No, Thomas. Our marriage was real. My commitment was genuine. I maintained steady eye contact. But when you decided to hide our finances, to lie about our resources, to treat me as financially incompetent, you changed the terms. I simply adapted to the marriage you created. His gaze shifts to the photographs on my office wall, images of properties I've developed, awards I've received, stored in a safety deposit box until yesterday, and the team I've built. Evidence of a life completely unknown to him. All those teaching conferences, he says slowly. The weekend workshops, the late nights grading papers. Business meetings, property tours, development planning, I confirm. Though I did continue teaching for the first 10 years. I loved my students. That part was never a lie. His eyes narrow with sudden realization. The Westbrook property, 3 years ago. You killed that deal. The Westbrook property had been Thomas's attempt to prove his real estate acumen, a commercial development his investment group had pursued aggressively. They'd been outbid at the last minute by an anonymous buyer who'd then transformed the property into a wildly successful mixed-use development. Waterson Holdings made a better offer, I acknowledge. It wasn't personal, just business. The property had better potential than your group recognized. This particular revelation seems to hit him differently than the others. The development had become something of an obsession for him after losing the bid, especially as he watched it flourish under its new ownership. He'd driven past it regularly, lamenting the short-sighted fools at his firm who hadn't authorized a higher bid. You've been competing against me, he says, the words hanging in the air between us. No, Thomas, I've been succeeding independently of you. There's a difference. His phone buzzes insistently. He glances at it, then back at me, conflict evident in his expression. The world is still turning outside this office, and his professional reality is unraveling alongside his personal one. My partners are calling an emergency meeting, he says, his voice tight. Apparently, our clients have questions about whether I've been steering investments away from my wife's company. Whether there are conflicts of interest. Are there? I ask simply. He doesn't answer, which is answer enough. I've reviewed his client portfolio over the years. There were multiple instances where his investment group competed directly against my company without his knowledge. This isn't over, he says finally, gathering the shreds of his dignity. 23 years of marriage means something. I have rights. You have exactly the rights you defined for yourself in this agreement, I reply, tapping the document between us. I suggest you review it thoroughly with your attorney. As if summoned by my words, Eleanor enters after a brief knock. Her timing, as always, is impeccable. Ms. Waterson, your 2:30 appointment is here, and the governor's office called. He'd like to speak with you about the Urban Renewal Initiative. Thomas's jaw tightens at this evidence of my connections reaching into political circles he's tried unsuccessfully to penetrate for years. Thank you, Eleanor, I respond smoothly. Please tell them I'll be available in 5 minutes. Thomas recognizes the dismissal for what it is. He straightens his tie, an unconscious gesture that reminds me of countless mornings watching him prepare to face the world as the financial authority in our household. How that small action now seems like a relic from another lifetime. We'll discuss this at home, he says, attempting to reclaim some control over the situation. Actually, I counter calmly, we should discuss it here tomorrow, with our respective legal teams present. 9 a.m. works for my schedule. Our home, he begins, will be a topic in those discussions, I finish for him, along with all other property matters. He stares at me. This woman he thought he knew completely suddenly revealed as someone entirely different, not lesser as he'd assumed all these years, but exponentially more. I don't even know who you are, he says finally. That's the point, Thomas. You never bothered to find out. After he leaves, escorted by security back to the main lobby, I allow myself a moment of quiet reflection. 20 years of strategic silence, of calculated patience, crystallized into this single day of revelation, not just to Thomas, but to the world. My phone buzzes with notifications, interview requests, congratulatory messages, and updates on our stock price, which has jumped 12% since the press conference. The markets, unlike Thomas, immediately recognize the value of what I've built. Maria enters with a tablet displaying live news coverage. Every business channel is running the story of Waterson Holdings' emergence and my unconventional journey from school teacher to real estate mogul. They're calling you the silent strategist, she informs me, unable to suppress a smile. The business world is fascinated by how you built all this without anyone knowing. Not quite no one, I correct her. You knew. Eleanor knew. My core team knew. The right people knew. Maria has been with me for 12 years, starting as a property manager when she was just 24, a single mother struggling to find flexible work that utilized her finance degree. Now she's my chief operating officer, overseeing a portfolio worth millions. Her journey reflects the company culture I've deliberately cultivated, finding overlooked talent, particularly women returning to the workforce or seeking opportunities denied them elsewhere. The Waterson Education Foundation announcement is getting significant attention, she continues. 7 schools have already reached out about implementing the financial literacy program. This aspect of today's revelation matters most to me. The foundation established to teach young women about financial independence, investment strategies, and entrepreneurship. The very knowledge Thomas assumed I lacked. Schedule meetings with all of them, I instruct, and contact the university about establishing the scholarship program immediately. Maria nods, making notes. Rebecca, she says, using my first name as she does only in our most honest moments. I've waited 12 years to see this day, to watch you finally receive recognition for what you've built. How does it feel? I consider her question, looking out over the city where my company has quietly reshaped entire neighborhoods, created housing, revitalized commercial districts, and generated thousands of jobs. It feels like stepping fully into who I've always been, I answer truthfully. Not becoming someone new, but finally being seen as who I am. The remainder of the afternoon unfolds in a carefully orchestrated sequence of meetings, interviews, and strategic decisions. By 6 p.m., when most executives would be heading home, I'm conducting a virtual town hall with all 47 Waterson Holdings employees, many of whom are seeing my face for the first time despite years of working for my company. Until today, most of you knew me only as RWS in emails or as the voice on occasional conference calls, I acknowledge. That anonymity was strategic, but it's now time for full transparency. Waterson Holdings has always been built on recognizing untapped potential in properties, in neighborhoods, and most importantly, in people. I see nods of agreement on the video screens, My hiring practices have always prioritized talent overlooked by other companies, women returning to the workforce after children, individuals from underprivileged backgrounds with raw intelligence but no prestigious degrees, seniors with experience dismissed by youth-obsessed corporations. Today isn't just about revealing my identity, I continue. It's about entering a new phase for our company where we can more openly advocate for our vision of inclusive development and financial empowerment. The foundation we're launching will extend our impact beyond real estate into education and community building. The questions from my team are thoughtful, focused on our future direction rather than the dramatic revelation of my identity. This, perhaps more than anything, confirms I've built the company culture I envisioned, one centered on purpose rather than personality. As the town hall concludes, my security team provides an update. Thomas has not returned to our home. His credit card shows he's checked into the Four Seasons downtown. A predictable choice, the same hotel where he stays when he wants to work late with his various companions. I decide to return home rather than remain at the office. This house, the showcase Thomas has used to display his supposed financial success, feels different tonight. As I walk through the marble foyer, past the art pieces Thomas selected to impress his colleagues, I see it clearly for what it always has been, a stage set for his performance of wealth. Even in creating this home, I'd been strategic. When Thomas insisted on buying in this exclusive neighborhood, I'd ensured the property was actually a sound investment rather than merely a status symbol. I'd quietly managed the renovation, making choices that would improve resale value while allowing Thomas to believe he was the one making savvy decisions. Our housekeeper, Marta, greets me with a knowing smile. She's been with us for 15 years and is one of the few people who glimpsed the truth long before today. "Congratulations, Ms. Rebecca," she says warmly. "I saw you on the news. So proud." "Thank you, Marta," I reply, touched by her genuine happiness for me. "It's been a long time coming." "Mr. Thomas called," she informs me. "Said he won't be home tonight. Meeting in Chicago." The slight raise of her eyebrow indicates she knows this is yet another of his fabrications. "Yes, I'm aware," I respond. "He'll be staying at the Four Seasons downtown while he processes some business developments." In my home office, I find the first tangible evidence of Thomas's reaction to today's revelations. Drawers have been hastily opened and closed, files disturbed. He's been searching for clues, for evidence of my business dealings he might have overlooked. I smile slightly at the futility of his efforts. Nothing of significance was ever kept here, another lesson I'd learned early in our marriage. My secure phone, the one Thomas knows nothing about, buzzes with a message from Eleanor. Preliminary reports from our investigators confirm Thomas's offshore accounts. Deposits align perfectly with the withdrawals from your joint savings over 20 years. Total amount approximately $2, $3 million. An impressive sum by normal standards, life-changing money for most people. Yet it represents only about 5% of Waterson Holdings' current valuation. I respond simply, include in tomorrow's discussion, not for leverage, for transparency. This has never been about the money itself. I have no interest in claiming the funds Thomas has hidden. My goal isn't to take what's his, but to protect what's mine. Not just financially, but my narrative, my achievement, my truth. My personal phone rings, my mother's name appearing on the screen. She's 82 now, living in the luxury retirement community I secretly purchased 5 years ago when Thomas insisted we couldn't afford to help with her housing costs. She's another person who's known the truth, though only for the past few years when I finally revealed my success to her. "Rebecca, darling," she begins when I answer, "you're all over the news. I've been fielding calls all day from ladies here who can't believe my daughter is that Rebecca Waterson. Mrs. Abernathy nearly spilled her tea when your face appeared. On CNBC." I laugh, her enthusiasm washing away some of the day's tension. I hope it wasn't too shocking for everyone. Shocking? It's magnificent. Though I imagine Thomas isn't taking it well. My mother never fully warmed to Thomas, her intuition sensing his dismissiveness toward women long before I acknowledged it. After my father died and Thomas managed my inheritance, her suspicions had deepened. "He's currently hiding at the Four Seasons, likely consulting with his attorney," I inform her. "We're meeting tomorrow to discuss next steps." "And will those next steps include divorce?" she asks directly. My mother has never been one to circle uncomfortable topics. "That depends on Thomas," I answer honestly. "I've been planning the company revelation for years, but the future of our marriage will be determined by his response to this new reality." After we talk a while longer, I end the call and move to the window overlooking our meticulously landscaped backyard. The garden lights illuminate the space where we've hosted countless dinner parties over the years, events where Thomas presented himself as the financial authority, while I played the role of supportive wife with minimal understanding of complex business matters. My phone buzzes with a text from Thomas. "My attorney will contact yours in the morning. I hope you realize what you've done to our marriage with this stunt." His framing is predictable, casting himself as the wronged party, my success as an act of betrayal rather than achievement. Even now, he cannot see beyond his own narrative. I don't respond. Words have always been Thomas's preferred battlefield. I've learned to speak through actions instead. As night falls, I allow myself to truly inhabit this moment I've worked toward for 2 decades, not with vindictive pleasure, but with the quiet satisfaction of having reclaimed my power precisely on my own terms. I think about all the women who found themselves in situations like mine, their financial autonomy undermined, their capabilities dismissed, their contributions minimized. Most don't have the opportunity or resources to respond as I have. Their victories must come in smaller moments, in boundaries established, in independence reclaimed one decision at a time. That's the true purpose of the foundation launching tomorrow, creating pathways for women to achieve financial independence regardless of their starting point. Not everyone can build a $40 million company, but everyone deserves the knowledge and opportunity to build their own security. My security system alerts me to movement at the front gate. Thomas's car has pulled up, his 4th return of the evening. The previous 3 times, he circled the driveway before leaving again, apparently reconsidering whatever confrontation he'd planned. This time, he enters the security code and the gate swings open. I remain in my office, listening as the front door opens and closes, as his footsteps cross the marble foyer, hesitate at the bottom of the stairs, then turn toward the light visible under my office door. His knock is uncharacteristically tentative. "Come in, Thomas," I call, remaining seated at my desk. He enters, his appearance markedly different from this morning. His suit is rumpled, his silver-touched hair disheveled, his expression a complex mixture of anger, confusion, and something that might be respect if he were capable of acknowledging it. "I've been driving around for hours," he says without preamble, trying to make sense of this, you, the company, all of it. I wait, knowing from long experience that Thomas needs to fill silence with his own voice. 20 years, he continues, pacing the small office. 20 years of… what? A double life? Secretly running a company while pretending to be someone else with me? Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? The irony of his question, its complete lack of self-awareness, would be comical if it weren't so revealing of the fundamental disconnect in how we've experienced our marriage. I imagine it feels similar to discovering your spouse has been hiding family finances and lying about accounts for 2 decades, I respond evenly. Or learning that the inheritance from your parents was diverted without your knowledge. Or finding out your partner considers you too financially inept to access your own money. He flinches, then rallies. That was different. I was protecting our future. And I was building it, I counter. The difference is, I succeeded beyond anything you imagined possible. He stops pacing, fixing me with an evaluative gaze I recognize. From countless business dinners, the look he gives when reassessing someone he's underestimated. How did you do it? He asks finally. Build all this without any background in real estate or business? Without connections or startup capital? For the first time today, his question seems genuinely curious rather than accusatory. I consider how to answer in a way that might actually penetrate his understanding. I started with what you dismissed as worthless, I explain. Properties in neighborhoods you considered beneath your attention. Investments too small for your notice. Opportunities overlooked because they didn't come with prestige attached. I gesture to the framed photograph on my wall, my first property, the condemned 1-bedroom unit Thomas had mocked as a waste of money. That building, Thomas. My first purchase. I paid $25,000 and sold it 8 months later for $95,000. While you were hiding our savings in offshore accounts, I was creating new value from what others had written off. His gaze shifts between me and the photograph, something like genuine astonishment breaking through his defensive facade. But the capital, the scale of what you've built. You couldn't have done that from just teaching salary and small property flips. I did exactly that, I correct him. I leveraged each success into the next opportunity. I built relationships with community banks overlooked by financial players like you. I found investors who recognized potential where others saw only risk. And most importantly, I built a team of people who had also been underestimated and had something to prove. Thomas sinks into the chair across from my desk, the full magnitude of what I've accomplished seemingly hitting him for the first time. Tomorrow at 9, he says finally. With the attorneys, we'll sort through all of this. I nod, neither antagonistic nor conciliatory. 9 a.m. at my office. Eleanor will send the details to your legal team. He stands to leave, then pauses at the door. One more question. All these years, was any of it real? Us? The question carries more vulnerability than Thomas has shown in years, possibly decades. I consider my answer carefully, owing him this much honesty at least. Yes, Thomas. My commitment to our marriage was real. My hope that you would see me, truly see me, was genuine. But when year after year passed with you continuing to hide our finances, to make decisions without me, to treat me as incapable, I built a parallel life where I was respected, where my abilities were recognized. The company became real. Our marriage became the performance. He absorbs this, his expression unreadable. 9 a.m., he says finally, and closes the door. Behind him, alone again, I turn to my computer to review the documents prepared for tomorrow's meeting. The financial disclosures, the property assessments, the proposed settlement that will allow Thomas to maintain his pride while acknowledging the new reality. As I work into the night, I think about the young women who will benefit from the foundation launching tomorrow. Girls who will learn financial literacy before anyone has the chance to convince them they can't understand money. Women returning to the workforce who will find opportunities to rebuild their careers. Entrepreneurs who will receive the seed, funding so often denied to female founders. Whatever happens with Thomas, whether our marriage evolves or ends, the impact of what I've built will extend far beyond our personal story. In the face of being underestimated, I created not just wealth, but a legacy of empowerment. And that, more than any dollar amount, is the true measure of success. The morning of the meeting dawns with remarkable clarity, both literal and metaphorical. I've slept in the guest bedroom, giving Thomas space in our master suite when he finally returned from his late-night drive. The separation feels symbolic, the physical manifestation of the truth that has been unveiled between us. I dress with deliberate intention, a custom Stella McCartney suit in deep burgundy, a power color but not an aggressive one, paired with subtle gold jewelry designed by a female artisan whose business I helped finance 5 years ago. Every element of my appearance has been selected to project not dominance, but unshakable self-possession. When I enter the kitchen, Thomas is already there, suited for battle in his favorite Tom Ford, the espresso machine hissing as he prepares his usual morning fuel. The silence between us carries the weight of 23 years of marriage and 20 years of parallel lives. "I've asked my driver to take me to the office," he says finally, not quite meeting my eyes. "I thought it best we arrive separately." "That makes sense," I agree, my voice neutral. "Eleanor has reserved the executive conference room for our discussion. Your legal team can access the building through the private entrance if they prefer." He nods stiffly, his fingers tightening, around his espresso cup. "Rebecca, before we—" He hesitates, seemingly struggling with words, a rarity for a man who has built his career on persuasive communication. "Is there any scenario where we move forward from this, together?" The question catches me off guard, not because I haven't considered it, but because I hadn't expected him to ask it so directly so soon. I study his face, searching for the motivation behind his words. Is it genuine desire for reconciliation, fear of public embarrassment, or simply the instinct to retain control of a situation rapidly slipping from his grasp? "That depends," I answer carefully, "on whether you're capable of seeing me as I actually am, not as the woman you've invented in your mind all these years." He flinches slightly, then nods. "I suppose I deserve that." "It's not about what you deserve, Thomas. It's about what's true." I pour myself a cup of coffee, maintaining the calm that has become my most reliable asset. "For 20 years you've interacted with a version of me that doesn't exist, financially naive, professionally unambitious, content to remain in your shadow. That woman was a creation, partly yours, partly mine. The question is whether we can build something authentic now that the reality is visible." He absorbs this, his expression unreadable. 9 o'clock, he says finally, gathering his briefcase and phone. "I guess we'll see what the attorneys think is possible." After he leaves, I remain in the kitchen, thinking about the question he posed. Is reconciliation possible? Part of me, the part that remembers the early years of genuine partnership, before he decided I couldn't be trusted with our finances, wants to believe transformation is possible. That Thomas could learn to see me clearly, to respect my capabilities, to embrace a truly equal relationship. Another part, the pragmatic. Businesswoman who has assessed countless risks over 20 years, recognizes the low probability of such fundamental change. Men like Thomas don't easily surrender the narrative they've constructed, especially when that narrative places them at the center of the story. By 8:30 a.m., I'm settled in my office at Waterson Tower, reviewing the final documents prepared for today's meeting. Eleanor arrives with her usual precision, accompanied by 2 members of her legal team. The media presence has doubled since yesterday, she informs me, placing a tablet on my desk displaying security footage of the gathered press outside. They're speculating wildly about your next moves, both business and personal. Let them speculate, I reply calmly. The foundation announcement should give them plenty to focus on besides my marriage. Eleanor nods, her expression professional, but her eyes conveying understanding. She's been with me through every phase of building Waterson Holdings, one of the few people who knew the complete truth from nearly the beginning. Thomas's attorney arrived 10 minutes ago, she continues. Gregory Porter from Harrington and Porter, divorce specialist, known for representing high-net-worth clients, particularly men in finance. Predictable choice, I observe, unsurprised. Porter's reputation for aggressive tactics in protecting male clients' assets is well known in our circles. Your security team reports Thomas just entered the building, Eleanor adds. We should head to the conference room. The executive conference room occupies the northeast corner of the tower's top floor, its glass walls offering panoramic views of the city including, by careful design, both our home and the Morgan Financial Building. I chose this room deliberately. For today's meeting, surrounding Thomas with visual reminders of how completely I've operated in spaces he thought were his alone. Porter is already seated when we enter, his expression betraying nothing as he rises to shake hands. He's exactly as I expected. Expensively suited, impeccably groomed, radiating the particular confidence of men who navigate exclusively in wealthy circles. Ms. Waterson, he greets me with practiced cordiality. A pleasure to meet you. Your business accomplishments are most impressive. Thank you, Mr. Porter, I respond, matching his professional tone. I appreciate your prompt availability for this discussion. Thomas enters moments later, his expression tightly controlled as he takes in the room, the assembled legal teams, and finally me, seated at the head of the conference table in what is unmistakably the power position. Let's begin, Eleanor suggests once everyone is settled. We've prepared a comprehensive overview of the current situation. For the next 30 minutes, she methodically presents the facts of our financial entanglement, or rather, the remarkable lack thereof. The separation agreement Thomas initiated 17 years ago. The documentation of his systematic withdrawal of shared assets into private accounts. The parallel growth of Waterson Holdings as a legally distinct entity. The current valuations and ownership structures. Throughout the presentation, Porter maintains his professional poker face, though I notice him making increasingly urgent notes as the full picture emerges. Thomas, by contrast, struggles to conceal his reactions, particularly when Eleanor displays the detailed tracking of exactly which shared assets he diverted to his private accounts over 20 years. As you can see, Eleanor concludes, the financial separation Mr. Waterson established has created a clear legal boundary between Ms. Waterson's business holdings and the marital assets. While this wasn't the original intent of the agreement, its language is unambiguous. Porter clears his throat, straightening the papers before him. While we acknowledge the existence of this agreement, its context must be considered. It was created to protect family assets from what Mr. Waterson believed were risky investments, not to enable the secret development of a separate financial empire. The agreement's purpose is clearly stated within the document itself, Eleanor counters smoothly. Its application is not limited by Mr. Waterson's unexpressed intentions, but by the explicit language he chose to include, language his own attorney drafted. This is the crux of our position, that Thomas created the very legal framework that now prevents him from claiming any portion of what I've built. The irony is both perfect and painful. His attempt to control and limit me became the foundation of my complete financial independence. Porter turns to strategy 2, emotional appeal. My client entered this marriage in good faith, contributing 23 years of his life to building a shared future. Regardless of legal technicalities, principles of equity suggest Mrs. Waterson's business success occurred within the context of that marriage and should be considered accordingly. Mr. Porter, I interject, speaking directly for the first time. I'd prefer to be addressed as Ms. Waterson professionally. And while I appreciate the appeal to principles of equity, I wonder if you're prepared to apply those same principles to the funds Mr. Waterson has systematically hidden in offshore accounts over the past 20 years. A momentary silence falls over the room. Thomas shifts uncomfortably in his seat. We have documented approximately $3 million in marital assets transferred to accounts under Mr. Waterson's sole control, Eleanor adds, sliding a detailed spreadsheet across the table. Each transfer correlated with a specific misrepresentation to Ms. Waterson about our client's finances. Porter glances at Thomas, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. Clearly, he hadn't been informed of this particular detail. Perhaps, I suggest, we should focus less on abstract principles of equity and more on specific proposals for resolution. I nod to Eleanor, who distributes copies of the settlement proposal we've prepared, a document developed not in the heat of yesterday's revelation, but carefully crafted over the past 3 years as I prepared for this eventual conversation. Our proposed resolution is straightforward, I explain as everyone reviews the document. Mr. Waterson retains all funds in his private accounts without any claim from me, regardless of their origin from shared assets. In exchange, I retain complete ownership of Waterson Holdings and all associated companies with no claim from him. The marital home and remaining joint assets would be divided equally. Thomas looks up from the document, his expression conflicted. You're not seeking any of the money I transferred to private accounts, even knowing it came from our joint savings? I have no need for it, I reply simply. My goal is clean separation of our finances moving forward, not compensation for past actions. This response seems to unsettle him more than any demand for restitution could have. The narrative he's been constructing, of me orchestrating some elaborate financial revenge, collapses in the face of this pragmatic disinterest in the money he took. Porter leans in to whisper something to Thomas, who shakes his head slightly, before addressing me directly. And what about the marriage itself? This proposal addresses the financial separation, but not whether we're separating personally. The question hangs in the air between us, bringing the clinical legal discussion back to the human reality at its core. 23 years of shared history. A relationship built partly on authenticity, partly on carefully constructed illusions. That, I answer carefully, is a separate conversation. One best had between us privately, after the financial matters are resolved. Thomas nods, something like hope flickering briefly in his eyes. I'll need to review this proposal in detail. With my client, Porter interjects, gathering the documents. We'd like to request financial verification of Waterson Holdings' valuation and structure. All relevant documents have been included in the digital package sent to your office this morning, Eleanor confirms, though I'll note that as a separate legal entity under the terms of the financial separation agreement, Waterson Holdings' internal financials are being shared as a courtesy, not an obligation. The meeting concludes with an agreement to reconvene in 3 days after Porter has reviewed the documentation. As the legal teams gather their materials, Thomas approaches me directly. Could we speak privately? Just for a moment? I nod, leading him to my private office adjacent to the conference room. Once the door closes behind us, he seems suddenly at a loss for words, his gaze moving around the space that represents this other life I've built without his knowledge. All these years, he says finally, gesturing to the awards discreetly displayed on my credenza, the architectural models of my developments, the photographs of ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings. You were capable of this the entire time, and I never saw it. You saw exactly what you expected to see, I reply, neither accusatory nor bitter, simply stating a fact. You decided who I was the moment you determined I couldn't understand finance, and nothing I did or said after that point could change that image in your mind. He flinches slightly, but doesn't dispute the assessment. And now? Who are you now that everything's in the open? The question feels genuine, perhaps the first truly honest inquiry he's made about my identity in decades. The same person I've always been, Thomas. The difference is that now the world sees me as I am, not as others have defined me. He nods, slowly absorbing this. The foundation you announced yesterday, the one teaching financial literacy to young women, that's about more than just business for you, isn't it? It's about making sure other women don't have to spend 20 years proving they understand money, I confirm, about giving them the tools to recognize their value and protect their interests from the beginning. Something shifts in his expression, a glimmer of genuine understanding breaking through decades of assumption. I'd like us to try, Rebecca, to see if there's something to salvage. He gestures vaguely to the world outside my office windows, not because of all this, but in spite of it. To find out if there was ever anything real between the people we actually are, not the roles we've been playing. His proposal surprises me, not because I haven't considered the possibility, but because I hadn't expected him to suggest it, first, or so directly. That would require something from you that I'm not sure you're capable of giving, I reply honestly. What's that? Complete surrender of the narrative you've constructed. The story where you're the financial provider and protector. The belief that your judgment is inherently superior to mine, the assumption that your needs naturally take priority. I maintain steady eye contact. In short, your entire understanding of our relationship would need to be dismantled and rebuilt from scratch. He doesn't immediately reject this assessment, which itself represents a shift from the Thomas of yesterday. I'd like the chance to try, he says simply. Then we can talk after the financial matters are settled, I respond, neither committing to nor rejecting the possibility. One step at a time. After Thomas leaves, Eleanor returns with updates on the morning's developments. The stock price increase following the foundation announcement, the flood of applicants for our financial literacy programs, the interview requests from major business publications. The narrative is exactly where we want it, she confirms, focused on the foundation and your business achievements rather than personal drama. Though there's certainly plenty of speculation about what happens next with your marriage. Let them speculate, I reply. The truth is, I'm not entirely certain myself. The remainder of the day unfolds in a carefully choreographed sequence of meetings and announcements. At 2 p.m., I host a formal launch event for the Waterson Education Foundation, announcing partnerships with 5 universities and 12 public school districts to implement financial literacy programs specifically designed for young women. Financial independence isn't just about wealth, I explain to the assembled educators and press. It's about agency, the ability to make choices based on your own priorities rather than others' expectations. When women understand money, they can write their own stories. By late afternoon, the foundation has received over $10 million in matching donations from other organizations and individuals, many of them women who recognize their own experiences in the narrative of being financially underestimated. As evening approaches, my security team alerts me to Thomas's return to our home. According to the surveillance system, he enters without his usual briefcase, but carrying several shopping bags from high-end retailers. An unusual pattern for a Tuesday. I decide to return home rather than work late, curious about this deviation from his routine. When I arrive, the house is transformed, subtle lighting, soft music, and the unmistakable aroma of my favorite meal being prepared in the kitchen. I find Thomas there, dressed casually but meticulously, arranging plates on our rarely used formal dining table. "You're cooking," I observe, genuinely surprised. In 23 years of marriage, I can count on one hand the number of times Thomas has prepared a meal more complex than breakfast. Trying to, he admits with an unexpected humility, though I had some help. He gestures to a professional chef's apron hanging by the door, suggesting he hired assistants for this effort. "What's the occasion?" I ask, setting down my bag and taking in the elaborate setup. "I've been thinking about what you said this morning," he replies, lighting candles at the center of the table, "about surrendering the narrative I've constructed. And I realized something I should have recognized years ago. I don't actually know you. Not really. I've spent 2 decades interacting with a fictional character I created in my head." He pulls out a chair, gesturing for me to sit. "So I thought maybe we could start there, with me learning who you actually are beyond the projections and assumptions." I consider his gesture with measured skepticism. Thomas has always been skilled at grand romantic moments when they serve his purposes. Yet something about his manner seems different, less performative, more genuine than I've witnessed in years. "That's an ambitious project," I observe, taking the offered seat. "I'm not sure a dinner conversation can bridge 20 years of misunderstanding." "Not bridge it," he clarifies, pouring wine into crystal glasses we received as wedding gifts and have rarely used. "Just begin the process, if you're willing." As dinner progresses, Thomas asks questions about my business, my team, my vision for Waterson Holdings, questions he's never bothered to pose before. He listens with uncharacteristic attention as I explain the philosophy behind my development projects, the sustainability principles we've implemented, the community engagement strategies that distinguish my company's approach. "I saw the Miller Street development yesterday," he admits as we finish the main course. "I drove there specifically to look at it with new eyes. It's remarkable, Rebecca. The integration of affordable housing with market-rate units, the community spaces, the environmental innovations. It's unlike anything being built by the major developers." His observation is accurate. The Miller Street project represents everything Waterson Holdings stands for: inclusive development that serves diverse populations while remaining profitable. It's also the project Thomas once dismissed as bleeding heart real estate that will never pencil out financially, when I mentioned similar concepts theoretically years ago. It's generating a 14% return on investment, I inform him. While housing families who would otherwise be priced out of the neighborhood. Profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. He nods thoughtfully. I'm beginning to see that, along with how completely I underestimated you. After dinner, we move to the living room with our wine glasses, the conversation shifting from business to more personal territory. I keep thinking about all the parent-teacher conferences, Thomas says, settling into the chair across from me. How I'd explain complex financial concepts to your students' parents, assuming you couldn't possibly understand them yourself. Were you just letting me make a fool of myself all those years? I wasn't trying to embarrass you, I explain. I was protecting my space to build something on my own terms. If you'd recognized my financial acumen, you might have tried to direct or control my business decisions. He winces slightly, but doesn't dispute the assessment. The foundation announcement today, I watched it online. The financial literacy program for young women. That's personal for you, isn't it? Deeply, I acknowledge. I keep thinking about who I might have become if someone had taught me early. On that, I had every right to control my own financial destiny. That I didn't need to defer to men on matters of money. How many women never discover their capabilities because they're conditioned to believe finance is beyond their understanding? Thomas is silent for a long moment, seemingly absorbed in genuine reflection. I've been that conditioning force in your life, haven't I? Part of the problem you're trying to solve. Yes, I answer simply. Though ultimately, you became the catalyst for me to prove the opposite, not just to myself, but to the world. As the evening progresses, our conversation continues with a frankness that's been absent for decades. Thomas asks about specific moments in our marriage, decisions I made, responses I gave, trying to understand the real thoughts behind what he now recognizes as a carefully maintained facade. Near midnight, as our conversation reaches a natural pause, he asks the question that's clearly been on his mind throughout the evening. Is there any part of you that wants to try again? Not as the people we've been pretending to be, but as who we actually are. I consider his question carefully, weighing 23 years of history against the person sitting before me now, a man attempting, perhaps for the first time, to see beyond his own assumptions. I don't know, I answer honestly. The woman you married, the financially naive school teacher content to remain in your shadow, she never existed. And the man I married, the one I believed respected me as an equal partner, he disappeared the moment you decided I couldn't be trusted with our finances. Thomas nods, accepting this assessment without defense. But, I continue, I'm not opposed to discovering whether the actual people we are now could build something authentic. It would require fundamental changes in how you see me, how you behave toward me, and how you understand partnership. I'd like to try, he says simply. I rise, signaling the end of our evening. Then we'll continue this conversation after the legal matters are settled, one step at a time. After Thomas retires to the guest bedroom, I remain in the living room, reflecting on the day's developments and the unexpected turn our personal conversation has taken. Part of me remains skeptical of Thomas's capacity for genuine change. Men rarely surrender power voluntarily, especially men who have spent decades assuming their judgment is inherently superior. Yet another part acknowledges the possibility, however slim, of transformation, of building a relationship based on who we truly are rather than the roles we've performed. As I prepare for bed, my phone lights up with a final message for the day. Not from Thomas or Eleanor or my executive team, but from Sophia, the banker who gave me that first crucial push toward entrepreneurship 20 years ago. Saw you on Bloomberg today. Kept your secret all these years, but so proud to see the world finally recognize what I saw in that determined woman who walked into my bank 2 decades ago. You've changed the narrative for all of us. Her message captures the essence of what today truly represents. Not just my personal triumph or the revelation of my company, but the rewriting of a story much larger than myself. A demonstration that being underestimated can become a powerful advantage when channeled into patient, strategic action. Whether Thomas and I find a way forward together or apart, that narrative has been permanently changed. The woman dismissed as financially naive has emerged as a market-transforming CEO. The hobby mocked as a waste of money has become a $40 million enterprise. The silent partner has found her voice, not in angry protest, but in the indisputable language of achievement. As I drift toward sleep, I find myself thinking not about Thomas or our marriage, but about the young women who will benefit from tomorrow's foundation programs. Girls who will learn early what took me decades to fully embrace, that financial independence is not just about money, but about the freedom to author your own story. That, ultimately, is the legacy I've built, greater and more enduring than any real estate development or corporate valuation. A foundation not of brick and mortar, but of possibility. A demonstration that sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated is not protest, but proof. Tomorrow brings the next chapter. In business, in marriage, in the continuing story of redefining what's possible when women refuse to accept the limitations others place upon them. Whatever form that chapter takes, I'll face it as my authentic self, no longer hidden in the shadows of someone else's narrative. After 20 years of strategic silence, my voice, in all its complexity and power, has finally emerged. And that, regardless of what happens next, is a victory that can never be diminished or taken away. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.